And military officials are telling us now that the shooter involved in the deadly rampage here was actually undergoing treatment and evaluation for mental illness. And while officials are still trying to come up with a possible motive, they say that at this point it doesn't believe the shooter was targeting specific soldiers. Investigators are trying to learn all they can about 34-year-old Ivan Lopez as they piece together what led to Wednesday's deadly shooting at Fort Hood.
We have an active shooter on Fort Hood.
The Iraq War veteran is accused of opening fire at the Army base.
There may have been a verbal altercation with another soldier or soldiers.
The attack ended when an officer confronted him, and Lopez turned the gun on himself. Army officials say Lopez drove a truck in Iraq and was not in combat, but he was receiving medication for depression and anxiety. And just last month saw a psychiatrist at Fort Hood as part of an evaluation for post-traumatic stress disorder.
We had no indication that there was any sign of likely violence either to himself or to others.
My whole thing is when somebody's going through evaluation, and even after that, even after the evaluation, for a person that has serious mental issues, I mean, it really needs to be attended to. Take that in consideration. This dude took his own life.
Shot dead in Fort Hood, Texas. Sergeant Timothy Owens of Effingham, Illinois. His mother says Owens was a counselor and was shot 5 times at close range as he tried to calm the shooter down. The gunman was identified today as Specialist Ivan Lopez, an Iraq veteran and the married father of a 2-year-old girl. Lopez killed 3 soldiers before committing suicide. 16 other soldiers were wounded. 3 are in critical condition tonight, but all are expected to survive. We have 2 reports. First, Anna Werner at Fort Hood. Anna?
Scott, Ivan Lopez used a semi-automatic handgun in this attack. The commanding general here says there are no signs yet that he had specific targets. The gunman had moved to this apartment a few weeks ago. Neighbor Shanice Banks saw him yesterday at lunchtime.
He looked fine. He didn't look, anxious or, there's no signs of it could have been him. That's why it was so mind-boggling.
A few hours later, he was shooting fellow soldiers. Lieutenant General Mark Milley.
There may have been a verbal altercation with another soldier or soldiers, and there's a strong possibility that in fact immediately preceded the shooting.
He started firing at an administration building. First calls to 911 were made by 2 of the soldiers he wounded. Lopez fired more shots as he drove to another building where he continued the attack.
There's at least 1 chaplain that I'm aware of that shielded and saved other soldiers, broke some windows, and got them to safety.
The rampage ended when Lopez was confronted outside by a female military police officer.
He pulled out the 45 caliber Smith & Wesson weapon, at which time she saw that, interpreted that as a threat, correctly so, and then engaged him with small arms fire, at which time then the shooter did a self-inflicted gunshot.
All 19 of his victims are military personnel. Army Major Patrick Miller of New York is one of them. His mother asked for prayers on Twitter. 3 of the victims are in critical condition. Dr. Matthew Davis.
Specifically, they have some injuries to the neck. We have a potential spine injury, and we also have an abdominal injury.
Visitors and soldiers are not allowed to bring personal firearms onto U.S. Army installations. Restrictions were tightened after the 2009 shooting here and a series of suicides. General Milley promises to review security protocols here. Scott, the 100,000 people who come and go at Fort Hood are not required to pass through metal detectors or security screening.
One of the biggest bases in the world. Anna, thanks very much. Homeland Security correspondent Bob Orr has been looking into the background of Lopez. Bob, what have you found out?
Scott, investigators have been told the gunman may have been upset that the Army had refused to grant him personal leave. And witnesses say Ivan Lopez argued with another soldier just before those shootings, but investigators can't say yet if any of that prompted the attack. The 34-year-old Lopez was born in Puerto Rico, served 11 years in the National Guard there, before joining the active Army in April 2010. Lopez's military career was unremarkable. He never saw combat, never rose above the rank of specialist. But he did spend 4 months in Iraq as a truck driver during the final U.S. drawdown at the end of 2011. Army officials say Lopez was troubled. He told military doctors he had suffered a traumatic brain injury, but that's not been medically confirmed. He sought treatment for anxiety and depression and was taking a number of prescription medications, including the sleep aid Ambien. Last month, Lopez went through a psychiatric examination. Fort Hood Commander General Mark Milley called Lopez's mental state a fundamental underlying cause.
We have very strong evidence that he had a medical history that indicates unstable psychiatric or psychological condition.
Preliminary searches of terrorist databases have revealed no connections with any terror group, and sources say Lopez had no significant criminal record. Now investigators are interviewing Lopez's family and going through his computer files, trying to find some explanation for the attack. Federal officials say Lopez purchased the weapon used in the attack, a .45 caliber Smith & Wesson semi-automatic pistol, on March 1st at Guns Galore, a gun shop near the Fort Hood base. Lopez passed a background check and registered the gun in his name. Now, Guns Galore is the same store where Major Nadal Hassan bought the gun he used in the 2009 rampage. But investigators tell us the two incidents seem completely unrelated. And while the motive in this latest case is still unknown, Scott, investigators say there is clear evidence of pre-planning. Lopez smuggled the gun onto the base with enough ammunition, we're told, to fire dozens of rounds.
Bob Orr in our Washington newsroom. Bob, thanks very much.
If he really wanted personal leave, you know, even after going through evaluation and stuff, they should have considered that and had taken that seriously, you know. Because we're all human beings. We have feelings, emotions, and everything. And something was probably really affecting that guy. His mental capacity, you know what I mean? He probably was really fed up and depressed or whatever was going on with him. People can't be always thinking that someone can be in compliance 24/7. You don't know what was going on in that gentleman's mind. For him to snap like that, you know, that guy had mental issues that needed to be attended to. And you never know. You see how they brought up the fact that he wasn't in combat. He was just a driver. You know what I mean? But still, just because he was a driver doesn't mean anything. You know what I'm saying? He could just be a driver that just got fucking a bunch of lows. You know what I mean? A bunch of downers. You don't know what was going on in that man's personal life, you know, for him to snap like that. Evidently, he wasn't strong enough and he didn't care about his family to take his own life like that. I should tell you something right there. I should tell you something right there. That was a major factor. So now, I hope they consider that when you have individuals on base like that have mental issues. And if they bring it to your attention, it should be a high concern of that. And it should be attended to. You know? He didn't want to be on that base anymore. Or for some kind of reason, he didn't want to be there anymore. We don't know what goes on behind the scenes on the base.
Any idea why? No.
The daily pressures or whatever. Or it can be just a personal thing in his life that he was going through.
Would you like some coffee?
No, thank you, ma'am.
You don't have to talk to us if you don't want to.
I understand.
How about telling us your name?
Well,
We could start with that.
Blue Eyes is signing off.
You know, it's funny.
Why don't you tell me what happened?
Once again,
Did you know
no contacts. Don't get it
shootings
fucked
with
up.
guys-
I ain't on no fake shit. My shit is real.
Whether there's a species above
Feel
us-
free to comment, subscribe.
How do you think you'd feel if that species lost all respect for us and started slaughtering us whole?
And y'all let me know how y'all feel about that
I don't know,
situation with this guy.
but it's very